A software bill of materials is an ingredients list, essentially. It's a way for us to at least be able to understand what is in our software, what are these components, so that when vulnerabilities are discovered, you can quickly look and find where those vulnerabilities are and fix them. That's not something that companies have been able to do. Now it is.
Hello there and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky. It's great to have you back. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny day, at least where I am. I'm hoping it is for you too. Thank you again for joining us. I love to read your feedback, which we regularly get. It makes all the difference knowing that the show is making a difference for you. So thank you very much for your wonderful, warm feedback. Now, on today's show, I have the pleasure of welcoming Chief Operating Officer at Cybeats Technologies, Mr. Justin Legger. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Yeah, Rick, great to meet you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure, Justin. Now, you and I are going to be talking about supply chain cyber threats and what Cybeats is doing to help their clients take a prevention-first cybersecurity approach to tackling today's cyber threats. Now, there is absolutely so much to unpack here, but it's customary for us to spend a bit of time, Justin, learning a little bit about you and the team behind Cybeats. It's a wonderful organization doing an amazing amount of work, and we're going to be sharing things like tickers and all that sort of stuff later on the show for those who are interested in learning more. But where are you calling in from today, Justin?
I'm in beautiful Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada.
Oh, wonderful. I tell you, I have a lot of guests come on the show out of Canada, and every time I hear about the place, I think to myself, I've got to get over there. What's the thing that stands out for you, Justin?
It's got to be the people, although the nature is not half bad either. It's a very peaceful place to be. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, given the nature of your work, I think having some downtime and being able to relax in an environment like that must be good.
Yeah, I make the most of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, what's your thing? Do you like hiking? Are you a sports person? What do you do?
Yeah, I think everybody on the West Coast has to call themselves a hiker, but my thing is surfing. I'm very much a water guy.
Oh, wow. Well, you definitely have to make your way over to where we live because it's all coastline where I'm at. So, so are you a longboarder?
I started out with longboarding. I've moved into the shortboarding, but I am what one would call a bit of a kook, a pretty terrible surfer. But it's for me. It's not for everybody watching, right?
What are you
talking? I enjoy it.
You strike me as a big wave type of guy. Come on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So is it something that you've been doing a long time?
Ever since I moved out here, I've gotten into it. You know, like I say, you got to make the most of where you're at, and so I think we're at about 5 years now. You know, I started a bit later, but it's definitely a key hobby of mine, especially throughout the winter months, which people wouldn't expect, but winter months are when you get out on the water here.
Oh yeah, as long as you've got a very thick wetty on, you'll be right. Now I know full well that paddling on the water, regardless if there is any waves or not, Justin, that it's a time of reflection, and you're very much at one with yourself. Is that important for you just to have that time away?
I need it. I need it. I got to build in. I call it strategic time, and I find when surfing is a sport where you need to let go as much as every little detail counts. You could be an inch too forward on your board or an inch too far back, and you're not gonna catch the wave.
Yep.
So the details count, but you have to be able to just let go and trust your body and trust your practice, and go with the flow.
Yep.
So it appeals to me because you're riding that line between letting go and precision.
Yes.
And I think they call something like that the flow state. So trying to get in the flow state is good. I find it has long-lasting effects outside of actually doing the act, right?
Yeah, no, I can remember the very first time I stood up. You can't explain it to somebody who has never stood up on a surfboard before. But look, thank you very much for sharing. Now, when you were growing up, where did you live when you were growing up?
I actually grew up on the east coast of Canada.
Right.
So quite a different scene in terms of nature, in terms of culture, in terms of economy. It was a blue-collar town that I grew up in, and a bit of a different place than most people maybe would think of when they think of Canada.
Yeah, wow. Thank you again for sharing. Now, when we're growing up in those early formative years, we often have people around us that can have an impact on our lives. Did you have anybody who influenced your way of thinking and your direction, do you think?
Yeah, I come from a really big family
Yep.
that was very involved with each other, lots of aunts and uncles, cousins, and I was the oldest of my generation.
Yep.
I'm an early millennial, so it's growing up during the analog age and coming of age as things went digital,
Yes,
and
yes.
so I had I admit I had a lot of attention growing up from the family, and they all had an impact on me, and we've got a real collection of characters there, but they all had their part to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any pets in the large family of yours?
Oh yeah, my first pet was a little hamster, completely
Oh.
dependent. Yeah, yeah. I can't believe I'm talking about my hamster right now, but Clyde. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, completely dependent. That was maybe not the best pet for a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, but at any rate, yeah, it
Well,
was
look,
okay.
I think it talks about responsibility of an early age, and I think it does give some context to the call, of which we're obviously going to be shifting gears in a moment to talk about
Yeah.
your work at Cybeats Technology. Now, as a Chief Operating Officer, what is actually your
Mhm.
role? What do you get up to there in a day?
Yeah, I mean, this can vary so much from company to company. I find it's a role that relates very closely to the surroundings that it's in. So you're playing off the CEO and what their strengths and weaknesses are. You're playing to the strengths and the weaknesses of the organization, how established its process is or isn't, what stage of the company it's in. In the Cybeats context, I would say that my job is very much the cross-functional collaboration within the team, making
Yes.
sure that the technology folks are working well with the sales folks, are working well with the customer success folks, and across all realms, really helping people and helping to put in place the process that's going to actually make sure that we're getting the most out of everybody's efforts.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. Normally, I talk about the team later in the call, but I think it's timely to, I guess, learn a little bit more right now about the management team, and I guess
Yeah.
who's leading up the ship, as it were.
Yeah, so we've got a very diverse team with quite a diverse background. We've also got some folks outside of the management team that are really helping us lead the company as well, both from like an industry perspective
Hmm.
and from a product perspective. We're getting lots of help from our advisory board. Our CEO is named Yoav Rader. He's coming from our parent company, Scribe, initially working with them. His background is in product development, medical device product development. So he's a bit of a tinkerer, an engineer, and somebody with big ideas. And I know he's very excited to be working in this area because everybody sees what a big idea that we have here and the potential. And I very much spent a lot of my time working closely with him. A lot of time on developing strategy
Hmm.
and more time on how are we going to realize that strategy and putting it into practice. And I would say that's another big part of my role there is to help put strategy into action and looking for those tactical wins to
Hmm.
lead to strategic results. But Cybeats is it's a few years old. It was started in 2016.
2016. Yep.
Not by any of us. We we're definitely coming into it a little bit later. Our chief technology officer, Dimitri Reagan, is one of the co-founders of
Oh.
Cybeats.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's definitely the guy with the grand vision for the product and the guy who's really closely tied into industry. Um, and he's a character. He's a bit of a force of nature unto himself as well. So yeah, it makes for a very exciting leadership team.
Yeah.
We've got some other experienced folks like our chief revenue officer Bob Lyle.
Hmm.
Um, he's got a deep background in sales and particularly in the telco space. And our CFO Josh Bald, who's young guy with lots to prove, lots of energy, and willing to put the time in. So it's a good mix. My background professionally is mainly within the military. I spent quite a few years in the Canadian Armed Forces, working up as a senior officer with the Special Forces, and then eventually got out of that into the private sector and worked in what you would typically be considered, a large enterprise, lots of structure, lots of rules, and then found myself in the last couple of years working in a more dynamic environment, which is where I feel a lot more at home.
Yeah, thanks again for sharing. Now, I love it when I talk with ex-military personnel because they come to the show with generally a lot of discipline. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the military and what did you take away from it, the one thing?
Oh, the one thing. Well, it's funny. It's been quite a few years, since I left, but it's still something that I think about and reflect on every day. So I trying to distill it down into one thing. It would be really hard, but I think as a leader in an organization, one of the main things that I took away is that I have a really strong duty to the people that I work with, and particularly those that we typically say work under me or work for me.
Yep.
I feel a very strong sense of duty to them and to our shareholders and to the overall mission that we're trying to do here. So duty, mission focus, pretty typical military stuff that you'd hear guys say or gals say. Yeah. But a couple of the qualities that I think that are helping me right now are, as you say, discipline, being able to stay on target, keep with it, never give up, no matter how hard it gets.
Absolutely.
That is a big differentiator. And probably related to that is my ability to manage my negative emotion and try to absorb some of that emotional baggage, whether that's with folks in the organization, folks outside of the organization. No matter how pleasant the work environment is, no matter how much fun you're having while you're doing it, there's always going to be tough times. There's always going to be those moments where you're like saying, why am I doing this? But hopefully not too many. But I find that's something that I can bring to the team. And that's definitely something that I honed in the military is,
absolutely.
Dealing with the hard times, right?
Thank you very much. Now, I would have this similar conversation with all the team at Cybeats if I could, because I think it really brings a differentiator to the My Future Business show, because we know that mechanically businesses don't generally change too much, okay? But what I do notice is that when we talk to people, it gives them some context about Cybeats and I guess their thoughts around how they run their business. So I very much appreciate it, as do the My Future Business audience. Now, I love quality management, I love quality assurance, and I love continuous improvement. Tell me how important that is in your world.
Okay, well, obviously you need to make sure that you're delivering the product on time, on budget, and at the requisite amount of quality. So really what we're trying to achieve is, and like we could talk about all the different standards in place and development methodology, but at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is provide a rock solid experience for our customers. And that requires a lot of forethought. That requires a lot of planning. That requires a lot of getting into the weeds. And you've got to build the team to do that. So we've got our quality assurance practice in place. We've got our team. We're actually growing that team right now. It's something that we never want to be in a position where we've failed to deliver up to the expectations of the client. Like execution for a guy like me is number one, and we've got consensus about that within the team. We'd rather move slower and more deliberate and have higher accuracy than move too fast and stumble. Which in a lot of businesses that they can't do that, they can't afford to do that. They don't have the discipline or whatever to make that work for them. But that is part of our makeup of
your mission,
our whole value system. Yeah, we must deliver. That Absolutely. Is
Not negotiable. Thanks again for sharing. Now, we briefly spoke about one of your co-founders and the idea for Cybeats, but I'm wondering if you could talk to that a little bit more. I'm wondering where the idea, was it because of global events? How did it come about for him? Do you know much about that side of it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's probably fair to say we're in a bit of a Cybeats 2.0 phase.
Oh, yeah.
Cybeats 1.0 is very much focused on IoT or Internet of Things security. And about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the company underwent a bit of a pivot, although we are still in that business. That is still something we develop and work on. Dimitri, in particular, was part of some very high-level groups at industry level, government level, looking into software bill of materials and how that can help secure the software supply chain, which requires a whole bunch of context that maybe we can get into.
Yeah, sure.
But essentially, well, I'll take it a step back then and provide a bit of that context.
Thank you.
So everybody's aware that the world runs on software, whether that's at the individual level, on your phone, your computer, or whatever, at the infrastructure level, government, everything. The whole world runs on software. And the fact is that nobody really knows what's in all of that software. A lot of software, when it's being developed, is made up of a bunch of different components and libraries. There's a lot of dependencies, interdependencies within those. And nobody goes line by line to look at the code and say what's in it. So, it's not that many people realize that, right? But
absolutely.
Like most software out there, most software out there, the components, at least some of them, at least most of them usually come from open sources. And as I said, nobody's going through line by line and finding those vulnerabilities that are in that software. So we've got a situation where more and more nefarious actors, and that could be government, that could be criminal, enterprise, whatever, they're looking for these vulnerabilities. And when they find them, they exploit them to the tune of trillions of dollars a year in cybercrime. And, we can only guess at what the impact is in terms of actual state actors going after each other. It's a major issue and a growing issue. So U.S. government and industry are really looking for ways to try to mitigate that. And one of these is to actually start to answer the question of what is in our software. So a software bill of materials, coming back to that, is just an ingredients list, essentially. It's a standard. It's a way for us to at least be able to understand what is in our software, what are these components, so that when vulnerabilities are discovered, we can quickly look. When you have the right platform or the right tools, you can quickly look and find where those vulnerabilities are and fix them. Either remove them, replace them, patch them, whatever, address that vulnerability. That's not something that companies have been able to do. And now it is. But that creates a new problem, right? Which is you've got a ton of data. Now you've got thousands of ingredients lists with who knows what in them. You can't read them.
No.
They're machine readable, right? There's just they're thousands of pages long. So what do you need? You need something to help you get insight out of that, and that is where Cybeats comes in. So Dimitri had a vision for a product that would allow people to unlock the power of SBOMs and to actually get actionable intelligence out of them. That's where we are today.
And, it takes out the human factor, doesn't it? We've got fatigue as human beings. There's just, like you said, so much data. Now, tell us a little bit. I guess it's timely for us to talk about SBOM Studio. Tell us how that came about.
Yeah, so SBOM Studio. So this is the platform that Cybeats has been working on, that Cybeats has been able to successfully sell to Fortune 500 companies and continues to get commercial traction. To, as I said, help them unlock the power of SBOM, help give insight into what's in their software, whether that's their software that they're developing, software that their vendors have developed and provided them with an SBOM. That's really what SBOM Studio is doing. It's the main effort and the real value that we're seeing is it accelerates companies' ability to address those vulnerabilities. When you get a major supply chain attack, is what they're called when they go after these vulnerabilities in the software, you've got an example like Log4j where it's everywhere, but you're not sure where, and you've got to spend hundreds or thousands of hours of developer time to try to pinpoint exactly where that is so that you can plug the hole, because anybody can walk in. And that's really what our software aims to do, which is, instead of it taking thousands of hours or hundreds of hours of developer time, is, well, just search for it. It'll pop up.
In your UX and make it very easy for those who are using it. Now, that leads me to another point. I'm wondering, is it very easy for a new user to understand? And do you serve with this SBOM Studio, I guess, the smaller companies? Who is your typical client? I know you talked about Fortune 500.
Yeah, so our vision for this product is that it is the SBOM management tool for everyone, everywhere, all the time. Ubiquitous.
Yep.
But it's still very early. This is very much, we're very, very early into this. It's the whole market around this is still being defined. The standard around it is still being defined. We're still seeing exactly how this is going to play out. But what we are seeing is, because the government has really primed the pump in terms of adoption through regulation and, well, increasing regulation. We've seen the FDA, for example. They say, okay, if you want to get a new medical device approved, you're going to have to submit an SBOM for it. Now,
really?
Yeah. So it's not binding, or it's becoming binding in October, whatever. Point is, it's coming, and really, it's large organizations that are in high-risk verticals, like industrial controls, medical device manufacturers, automotive. They see this, and they're like, telecommunications, exactly. Financial sector. We've been talking to folks all across these industries, and they don't just see it as a compliance thing with government regulation. They see it as, okay, we're protecting our
national
customers,
security.
We're protecting national security, we're protecting our business. There's a lot to it. Like I said, the cost of crime in cyber is trillions of dollars a year. And, we're just one little piece of that, but we can help companies point out where those vulnerabilities are when they become discovered. And, obviously increasing their ability to respond. So
the first thing that comes to my mind, Justin, is I'm so glad that Cybeats exists, because they're moving the needle, obviously, and we're going to be making sure that people listening to this call who are interested in learning more will be able to do that. Now, I think, to reinforce the point of how important and how significant this is, cybersecurity threats, they're not a local problem, they're a global problem. I'd love to talk a little bit about the examples that just popped to mind. The likes of Huawei, we're stopping producers sending in products that are technology driven, so this, I think, somehow relates. But then you've also got the recent 3CX software supply chain attack, and presumably by the likes of North Korea. Tell us a little bit about those types of examples and how significant they are.
Yeah, so these are excellent examples of where vulnerabilities can be exploited and how they can work their way into real life, not just digital, right? We've got I'm from the military, we've got the Army, Navy, and the Air Force and the Special Forces guys to keep us safe in the physical world. But, we're all citizens of this digital world. We're completely connected almost all of the time. And so when vulnerabilities exist, we're all vulnerable. And we put a lot of trust in the companies that supply the software to keep us protected, to keep us safe, to, actually support our physical security as well. So they're excellent examples. The supply chain attack in particular is a good one. And as I mentioned before, Log4j, another great example. Could check that out. These are examples where a lot of software has become very dependent on a certain component, and that component is ubiquitous and has a very serious vulnerability. So now that you found out about the vulnerability, you didn't know about it. Now you know about it. Okay, well, you've got a responsibility to fix it.
Yep.
So where do we look? And that's what we're trying to help people do is help them know where to look.
Yeah, it's one thing to find it; it's another thing to do something about it, isn't it? So, with regard to new users, I touched on it a little earlier. Is it difficult to learn the interface, or is it largely automated?
There's a lot of automation in the system, but it is very much a developer tool or a management tool. We're seeing folks use it in different ways, whether it's communicating risk to the C-suite or being able to just even understand, okay, answering a question, how many vulnerabilities do we have in our software? Well, if you've got SBOMs for that software, we can answer that question for you. But also helping people understand other things like managing actual SBOM data. What's the quality of those SBOMs? What do you need to actually pay attention to? Because that is becoming the next big problem that we're trying to solve, and I think, and in some ways they're solving, is, okay, of all these vulnerabilities, and there's thousands, which one do I actually have to pay attention to right now? What's the 3% that I need to look at today? Because you'll never get to them all, because it's a moving target. So what do we need to look at? But it is very much a developer tool. Like I said, big companies have a problem right now because they're the early adopters of this, and they're the ones with the most to lose. But I do see this over time working its way throughout industry at all levels, and this will be a good way for people to actually be able to store, ingest, share, and manage SBOM data.
I'm wondering, is there like a direct comparison between you and how other people in your niche, your industry operate? And how is Cybeats different in this respect? Is there any difference?
I think the difference comes down to a few qualitative factors. The technology, it's obviously we've got a few tricks up our sleeve, but at the end of the day, we are managing a certain type of data. What I think really makes the difference is just how deep into this that we are, and how we're keeping our finger on the pulse of it. I would also say that our speed and agility in terms of recognizing customer needs, addressing customer needs specific to this area, are a major differentiator for us. And I think we're coming out ahead right now. We're certainly getting the commercial traction on that front to prove that out. And I think we're leading the way in this industry for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that you are getting a lot of traction in terms of commercial success, which is, I think, very important for anybody who's looking to get further information. Tell us a little bit about how long that journey's taken, because is it now exponential? Is it going through the roof in terms of take up?
Yeah, I was actually looking at our numbers there just the other day, looking for the hockey stick, right?
Oh yeah.
Basically, like I said, we're leading the market, so it's easy to say like, oh well, it's early days, and we're going to start to see some more uptake on all of that. And I think that's true, but it is very much a case of we're not having to explain to folks anymore what is an SBOM. We found out pretty quick that if you had to explain to a potential client what an SBOM is, like it's not going anywhere anytime soon, right? So in some cases, especially with our early clients, it did take a while, right? But in a lot of cases, our clients are also the ones that are helping lead the way, and they want a partner to work with to help deliver on this vision that they have around supply chain security. So we're very much working. We're working closely with our clients, other folks in industry, other folks in government, to help bring this to the forefront and get some eyes on it. There are a million different angles to look at cybersecurity, and ours is just one piece. But we believe that the farther left you look, and we're looking at this software supply chain, the more likelihood that you'll be able to get ahead of problems and avoid them to begin with.
Absolutely. Now, I know there'd be a lot of people interested in learning more and maybe even getting access to the platform on, I guess, a demo level. Is that available? Is that something people can get access to?
So we're not demoing for individuals at the moment, but we are definitely interested in talking to folks commercially. This is not a tool necessarily that any individual would want to use. Like, hopefully you don't have to ever think about SBOM ever again, other than when you look at your Cybeats stock and be glad that you bought some. But basically, we're working with folks that have a present and burning need to solve their SBOM data problem. So if you've got one of those, then by all means, give us a call.
They would be very much self-selecting. You would know who you are, and if you're interested, certainly
Yes.
make sure to reach out to the team. Now, tell me a little bit about the tickers and I guess what people will find on the website.
Yeah, so our ticker is CYBT on the Canadian Securities Exchange and CYBCF in the US. We've just recently launched there, I believe it was in May in the US. So just recently we were able to purchase Cybeats stock. My belief, it's just my personal belief, is we're at the beginning of this. We're at the beginning of the Cybeats wave where, we've got the government prime with industry. We've got the commercial traction growing, and I think we're very undervalued. And part of that may be due to the fact that we're in Canada and we're a little bit off the beaten track, and we're not in Silicon Valley dealing with the sophisticated investor support that they have there. But we're making a go of it, and the proof is in our product. The proof is in our commercial activity. I think this can go a long way. It can be a very interesting story for Canadian within the Canadian market, certainly. And though we're headquartered there, we've got a team all over the world.
Yep.
Almost all of our clients are in the U.S. We're very much trying to act like a global company, but we are headquartered in Canada. We're very proud to be there.
Absolutely. Now tell us, what is the website domain where people can go and visit to learn more?
Certainly. Our website is www.cybeats.com. It's CYBEATS.com. And there you'll get a high-level view of our product. You'll get a high-level view of our leadership team. You'll see our very impressive advisory group. We love them. And you'll get a sense of who the folks are and what it is we're doing and the problems that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, very exciting times. I'm very much excited to learn more myself. I'll be making sure to go over to cybeats.com and checking it out. And if you are on this call, know for sure and certain there is a lot of great information awaiting you. Again, I'll be making that website link available below this post. No matter where you see this call, you're going to be able to get back to Cybeats and Justin and the team. And with all that, Justin, it's been a wonderful, insightful conversation. Thank you so very much for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. My pleasure.